Hello, this is Paul Hoyt. Welcome back to part 2 of our Business Survival Bootcamp program. In part 1, we talked about the key survival tips of focusing on sales and delivery, and on focusing on engaging with the marketplace and then relentlessly pursuing financial stability. In part 2, we're going to talk about the business survival problem and a big part of the solution. So let's get right to it. Here's the business survival problem. I think that way too many business owners fail. How many fail? We really don't know. The common knowledge and many surveys will suggest that 50% of businesses that start today will last 3 years or less. In other words, that if 10 businesses start today, only 5 of them will be around 3 years from today. But I think the problem is much, much worse than that, because most of the surveys are based on tax records, and especially the records of businesses that have employees. But I know there's a lot of businesses out there, including a tremendous amount of home-based businesses, that don't have any employees at all and never show up on those surveys. It's been estimated by some people that home-based businesses, direct marketing businesses, multi-level marketing businesses, oftentimes experience only a 1 or 2% success rate. So I believe that the success rate of people who want to be an entrepreneur in America today may be down in the 10 to 15% range, which is way too low. Here we are, the bastion of capitalism for the entire free world, and we have a tremendously poor success rate. Here's the reason why. I think most business owners are extremely ill prepared. They don't get the training they need before or after they start their business. They take the job without even really understanding what the job is, so they make a lot of mistakes that slow them down or shut them down. According to a survey by the University of Tennessee in 2012, 76% of business failures were due to management incompetence or inexperience. 76%. That's a huge number, and it doesn't have to be that way, because there are some systems out there that we can copy from that have a much higher success rate. Let's take a look at a couple of those. Here's the way that the military hires people. They have very well-defined job descriptions. They give everybody who wants to potentially join the military a qualification test called the ASVAB, or the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, to see whether or not they're qualified for the position that they're seeking. They do background checks because we don't want to give people who have a felony record, or especially a record of violence, a weapon and give them training on that weapon. They put them through a 12-week boot camp so that they are indoctrinated into the culture of the military. The language and the way you dress and all of that is heavily focused on making sure that people are assimilated into the organization. They get lots and lots of training, some of it by a drill sergeant who is relentless in his pursuit of your physical abilities. They get entry-level positions with lots of mentoring thereafter, ongoing management. They're surrounded by an incredible team of people, and they have promotion and advancement based on tests and education, and they're very successful with this. And here's the way the top companies hire, which is another proven success system, which is dramatically similar to the way that the military hires. They have a job description that they publish typically in newspapers. They may review applications and do an internal comparison as to whether or not the applicant is qualified for the position that's defined in the job description. They have lots of interviews with very great questions. They do background and reference checks. They do probationary hiring typically, especially for the lower level positions. You have a 90-day probationary period to see whether or not you're really a fit for the company and to see whether or not your skills and experience really match up to the requirements of the job. They get training and mentoring with great onboarding, and they're surrounded by a great team. And typically they have ongoing management and advancement by performance. That's the way that really sophisticated, extremely diligent and excellent companies hire people and bring them into their process and integrate them into the company. In contrast, here's the way that most small businesses are started. There is no job description. As I said earlier, most small business owners start a business without really even understanding what the job is. There's no one to objectively review the application to see whether or not their skills and experience match up to the requirements of the job. There's no interview process to see if they're qualified, and there's no reference checks. Nobody's calling their friends or previous work associates to see whether or not they think the person is qualified for the job. There may be probationary hiring. Some people prefer to start slow. They prefer to dip their toes in the water before jumping in all the way. But there are a lot of inspirational and motivational speakers out there that encourage people to burn the bridges and burn the ships and have no plan B. They really want them to jump in 100% with all of their money and all of their time and their focus on the new business, because they know full well that the business is going to be so hard and so difficult that if there's any way to back out, that they probably will. There's typically no onboarding process. They may have self-selected training and mentoring, but they're left to their own devices as to who to choose to be their mentors and which training to get. They may have a self-selected team, but again, many of them don't have the qualifications in order to judge the capabilities of the team that they would select. They may have no ongoing management, no performance coaching, no mentoring, and they're often self-promoted before proven performance. I see this a lot of people who want to start a small business, but they're encouraged to start a much bigger business for whatever reason. I don't really know. We're going to talk about why that's a problem in just a minute. But here's the problem and the opportunity. So if we see how it lines up, the way that the military hires and onboards people and integrates them into the military system, and the way that very sophisticated companies hire people and integrate them into their systems is remarkably similar. The military has greater than an 85% success rate of people who sign up for the military and who are integrated in that system and last for a while. The U.S. Air Force has the best record. They have like a 92 or 93% onboarding success rate. Corporate America, without these steps, is normally about a 50% success rate. But with all of these steps, with a very diligent hiring process, where you have job descriptions and interviews and background checks and onboarding processes and probationary hiring and great training surrounded by a great team, can also get above 85% success rate. Let's compare that to small businesses, where there is no job description and these steps are largely ignored or done extremely poorly. And that's why we have a much less than 50% success rate. The solution to that, I think, is obvious. I believe that your probability of survival and your growth rate will dramatically improve if you understand the work to be done, if you understand how your experience has prepared you to do the work of your job, if you are trained to do that work, if you have an onboarding process, if you have someone who will act as your manager to guide you, to help you make great decisions, solve problems, overcome obstacles, and if you are surrounded by a great team. I am convinced that foundational training and business success principles and the mentoring will help you dramatically if you're starting to think about having a business, or if you've been in a business for a short time and you want to get off to a better start, and even if you've been in business for decades and you want to accelerate your growth. It's not easy being a small business consultant. You know, I mentioned in part one how I had a 30-year career as an information systems professional, and then I went to be a small business consultant. I've worked with some of the world's largest computer systems. Well, they were the world's largest when I was working on them in the 90s. And what I discovered was that being a small business consultant was far more challenging than working with the world's largest computer systems. And here's why. It's because entrepreneurs are not the same. They vary in experience and talent. Some of my clients are 18 and 20 and 22 years old. Some have no college education. Others have PhDs from Caltech or from other reputable places. Some of them have no management experience. Some of them are corporate vice presidents, and they've run $20 million business units and had staffs of hundreds of people. So entrepreneurs are not the same. They vary tremendously in their experience and talent. And the businesses that they choose to go into are not the same as well. They vary in complexity. And each business that you would choose to go into has its own business complexity profile and its own business complexity score. I've analyzed hundreds of businesses. There's 14 of them listed on this little table here, from the least complex business that there is, which is selling roses on the street corner, to the most complex business that I have analyzed, which is having a new medical device and bringing that to market. They vary tremendously in their complexity across all of the key performance areas of business. And each one of these columns here represents a key performance area of business, and I'll tell you what those are here in just a few minutes. Let's take a look at a couple of companies so that you can understand what the business complexity profile means. A hot dog stand has a business complexity score of 13, which is a very, very simple business. Self-motivation is essential from a leadership perspective, but because you have no employees, you don't have to manage people, you don't have to create a lot of strategic plans or growth plans at all. As it turns out, from a marketing perspective, that location is everything. You don't have to focus on lead generation because people walk by, and you can have repeat customers. So it's a fairly easy business from a marketing perspective. And you may or may not have a lot of direct competition. You may have some indirect competition, but typically you never see two hot dog stands right next to each other because they both know that that will detract from the business of both of them. From a sales perspective, it's very easy. It's an impulse sale. Hey, mister, would you like a hot dog? Hey, lady, you really look like you're hungry today. It's very simple to engage with a customer or a prospect and attempt to close them on the purchase of a hot dog, and upsells as well. It's a cash business. You may or may not take credit cards, but generally the transaction happens very quickly. You don't have to have long, complex proposals. You don't have to have payment plans. It's a very simple business from a financial point of view. And there's very little inventory and little shrinkage. So from an operations point of view, it's very simple as well. It's a simple business. Anybody who loves hot dogs, who has an engaging personality, who can understand the basic rules of food handling, can be successful with a hot dog stand if they have the right location. Let's contrast that with a far more complex business. A simple consumer product, some product that you've invented in your garage that you want to bring to market and sell on the shelves of Walmart or via an infomercial or in a little boutique store down the way. It turns out to be one of the most complex businesses that there are. There's typically a very long and expensive development cycle. There may be legal and patent issues around the products. There's typically a very heavy marketing expense, especially if you want to package the product so that it goes on a big box shelf like Walmart or Best Buy or Kmart. You can have very complex supplier relationships, especially if some of your suppliers are international, if you're getting your products and services made in Asia, for example. It can be very capital intensive because of the long development cycle, because of the need to engage with foreign manufacturers, because of the legal and patent issues, because of the marketing expense. It can be a very capital intensive process. And the worst of all is that you have unknown market response. Until you engage with the marketplace, as we mentioned in part one, until you engage with the marketplace, you really don't know whether or not your customers are going to want your product. You don't know if the dog is going to eat the dog food until you prepare it and put it in front of them and see how they respond to your offering, your product at a particular price. So that's a very complex business model. A lot of what I've learned about the science of business success comes from a relationship I've had with a couple of PhDs in entrepreneurship. Greg Lichtenstein and I met at a conference in the end of 2006, and he and his partner Tom Lyon wrote a book called Investing in Entrepreneurs, a Strategic Approach for Strengthening Your Regional and Community Economy. I encourage you to get this book. It's available on Amazon, and it has a lot of the science of business success. They have studied the science of starting businesses and growing businesses under many millions of dollars of grants from large reputable foundations over a period of 25 or 30 years. And here in its simplest form is what they discovered. What they discovered is that if you take a rookie business owner, somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience, and give them a very simple business like a hot dog stand, that they have a very good chance of success. But if you have a massively complex company like a medical device company or a consumer products company, it takes somebody who's an expert or a master in starting and growing businesses in order to make that business successful. The key is that you want to match the skill set set, the mindset, and the experience of the business owner with the complexity of the business that they choose to start and grow. Just that simple. We want to match people with a job where they have an opportunity to be successful. One of my favorite consultants, Scott DeGraffenreid, has a quote that I oftentimes say, and that is that everybody deserves a winnable game worth playing. If we match the skill set and the experience of the business owner with the complexity of the business itself, then I think we've got a winnable game. If we don't match them, then I think that we have a very low chance of success indeed. Let me take that and dive deep into another business example. Let's take a simple coaching business. As it turns out, a coaching business is not nearly as simple as it would first appear to be. With a business complexity score of 29, it is a lot more complex than a hot dog stand, much less complex than a simple consumer product, but much more complex than you might think that it is. And here's the reason why, is that coaching, the actual delivery of coaching services, talking to coaching clients, is only 30 to 40% of the business. Marketing can be a huge problem because of the differentiation challenges. And when you're selling a service with largely intangible outcomes, it is more difficult than selling someone a hot dog or selling somebody a consumer product. It takes a lot more salesmanship to be able to sell a coaching service than it does to sell a physical product. Here's what the business complexity profile looks like for a coaching business. I give them a score of 3 on the area of leadership, because they need to be a role model, not just a self-motivated person like who's running a hot dog stand, but they also need to model the coaching discipline that they are suggesting and sharing with their clients. Marketing is a big problem because of the differentiation problems in between life coaches and personal coaches and spiritual coaches and executive coaches and transformational coaches. There are a lot of different types of coaches out there, and it's confusing to the marketplace. So getting people to understand exactly which flavor of coach you are can be very difficult. Sales can be a challenge because it's an intangible product. They're not selling a hot dog that they can take a bite of and get some satisfaction right away. You're selling a service which may take days or weeks or even months in order to produce any sort of tangible results. So you're selling a product which has an intangible outcome. Financial management is a little more challenging because you can have payment plans, and you're typically taking credit cards for coaching services, so there can be financial management issues. Operations is not too difficult because it's just scheduling appointments and scheduling marketing events like networking and referral programs. Product development can be very easy. Anybody can become a coach in a matter of hours and a matter of a few $100. There are many different training programs available out there depending upon which sort of coaching discipline you choose to be. And customer service is difficult because it's a very nurturing, embracing, touchy-feely kind of business in order to engage appropriately with your client, to be able to push them and needle them and encourage them and sometimes kick them in the butt while at the same time getting them not to hate you and walk away from the service. So this is the profile of a coaching business. Let's take an example of someone who wants to be a coach. This is a real live example I call Nurse Nancy. Nurse Nancy is a second shift supervisor at a local hospital and decides that she wants to be a nurse. She has good leadership capabilities. In fact, she's been managing people throughout most of her career as a shift supervisor. Nancy knows nothing about marketing. She knows nothing about sales. She knows nothing about financial management. She's good in operations because you have to be very diligent when you take care of patients in a hospital in giving them medication and making your rounds and checking in on people. You have to have a pretty good focus on operations. Nancy knows nothing about product development because she's never had to develop a product before, and she's really good on customer service. She loves her patients. She loves to take care of them, and she's very nurturing and very embracing. But now she's decided that she doesn't want to be a second shift supervisor anymore. She wants to have a first shift job. She wants to work during the day and take time off during the evening like so many people love us. She wants to work during the day and take time off in the evenings like so many people do, so she decides to be a coach. So here's how her skill set and experience matches up with the business complexity profile of being a coach. As you can see, she's got plenty of leadership skills. She's got plenty of operational skills. She's got plenty of customer service skills. It's pretty easy to overcome her weakness, her lack of experience and lack of skill in product development. And it's not going to be very difficult at all to overcome her lack of experience in financial management. But she's got major gaps when it comes to marketing and when it comes to sales. If she doesn't get the marketing support that she needs, if she doesn't get the sales training that she needs and focus on being a sales professional in addition to focusing on being a professional coach, she's going to have a lot of problems. In fact, without closing these gaps, she's not likely to even be successful as a coach, or just be extremely marginally successful and struggle a lot and wonder why that she's struggling a lot. So that's a challenge. But you know what? This challenge is a correctable challenge. This is something that we can address. But in this particular case, this person went to a conference and people said, you know, you are so good at what you do. You have such great experience as a nurse that we don't think that you should just be a coach. We think that you should create your own coaching company. We think that you should develop your own coaching products and services and your own coaching discipline and hire people to work for you. So she has been encouraged to have a bigger dream. That bigger dream of having a coaching empire will require a lot more leadership skills, a lot more marketing skills, a lot more salesmanship skills, because now she has to hire and train and manage her own sales team, a lot more financial management skills because of the investments required to create the company and the payroll requirement of having their own employees, etc. It's going to take a lot more in the area of financial management. Operations are going to be more complex because instead of just scheduling her own appointments, now she has a scheduling system that schedules the appointments of all of her employees and all the coaches that work with her and through her. Product development is a big problem because now it's just not a matter of spending a couple of $100 and a few hours getting basic training and being a coach. It's a matter of developing your own coaching practice, which takes a lot more time. And customer service is about the same issue, just a little bit larger, because now with more employees and more clients, that there's bound to be a few more customer service issues. But instead of having a business complexity score of 29, now there's a business complexity score of 50. When you have a bigger dream, you have bigger challenges. And in her particular case, she also has bigger gaps. Now, instead of manageable gaps in marketing and sales, she has big gaps in the area of leadership, much larger gaps in the areas of marketing and sales, big gaps in financial management and product development, and other gaps as well. So her operational experience will play her well. Her customer service experience will work very well, even with this much larger company. But with the bigger dream comes the bigger gaps, and her probability of success just went down enormously because of the incredible mismatch in between her skill set, her experience, her mindset, and the requirements of this bigger, more complex business model. Let me come back to the problem. Way too many business owners fail. They fail because they're ill prepared. They don't get the training they need before they start their business or after they start their business. They take the job without knowing what the job is. They make a lot of mistakes that slow them down or shut them down, and it just doesn't have to be that way. Here's a big part of the solution, and that's for you to understand the work that needs to be done, to understand how your experience has prepared you to do the work of the job that you have chosen for yourself. You get trained to do the work and close those gaps. You have a great onboarding process. Have a mentor who can play the role of your most beloved manager, who can help you solve problems, make good decisions, fill out your team, do all of the kinds of things that you need to do in the first 90 to 180 days of the business, which you are probably terribly underqualified to do. And you want to be surrounded by a great team. So I want you to think for just a second about all of the different areas of business. We mentioned these earlier. Here are the 7 key performance areas of business that I defined in my book, The Foundation Factor, from 2004. They are leadership, marketing, sales, product development, operations and administration, financial management, and customer service or customer delivery, depending on where you are. And I want you to ask yourself, for each one of these areas of business, do you understand the job? Do you understand what's required of you from a marketing perspective? What's required of you from an operations perspective? What's required of you from a customer service perspective? Have you received the necessary training to do the job that you now understand? Do you have a mentor who can work with you and play the role of a manager to help you solve problems and guide you in your career and guide you as you start and grow your business? And are you surrounded by a great team? If the answer to these is not really, then you have a big part of the solution as to why you might be struggling in business and why your growth is not happening near as quickly as you would like for it to be. That's the end of part 2. The business survival problem and a huge part of the solution. In part 3, we're going to talk about the sets of business, which will offer another big part of the solution to solving the problem of the lack of success of businesses in the United States today. So take a breath, tune in for part 3. This is Paul Hoyt. Thanks for listening.